You just purchased your side wing, you want to know how to assemble it, that's probably why you came to this video, or you wanted to see my ugly mug again. There's a few things we'll be going over. What you should have received in the box, recommended tools for assembly, standard assembly for the side wing on a 3x3 rack with 1-inch holes for the top and the bottom. And keep in mind, those instructions will be the same for a 2x3 rack with 1-inch or 5/8 inch holes, assuming it's the same dimensions as something like our Osprey. Modifications if you're mounting it on the other side of your rack, and we'll also be showing it mounted on a shorter squat stand and also tell you how to modify your cables to make it fit. Straight out of the box, you'll get the following: the side wing unit itself, the bottom pulley for the side wing, a pair of cable cutters, the pin to load your plates on, a larger set of bolts. You're going to get 3 of these with 2 washers and 1 nut for each. And you'll also get a smaller bolt with 2 washers and a nut for each, making that 6 of these total, 3 large and 3 small. You'll also get a back plate if you choose to mount this, and you'll be getting some chains. First, we're going to go over how to mount it to a 3x3 squat cage with 1-inch holes. Now, keep in mind, if you have a squat cage that is 2x3 that is similar height, so 89 inches, and it's got towards the top holes on all 4 sides of the tubing, then you're going to follow the same exact process because, again, this is a universal pulley system that goes on 3x3 and 2x3 squat stands or cages with 1-inch or 5/8 inch holes. Now, if you have pre-existing hardware on your squat rack, then feel free to use that. Our Osprey already has the 2 that are connecting the upright and the cross member, and I already loosened them a little bit before. So we're just going to take the nut and the washer off the bottom, and we'll do the same thing for the top. We're not going to remove the bolts here, just the nuts and the washers, and you'll see why. So I've got the side wing in my hand, and this is going on the left side of the rack. I've already got the bolts ready. Reason I say that is because if you're putting it on the right side, we're gonna have to make a couple of changes, which I'll mention later in the video. But let's focus on this right now. The side wing has 2 slots, one for 1-inch hardware and one for 5/8 inch hardware right below it. But obviously we're just worried about the 1-inch holes right now. So we'll just grab this, slot them through, and you could just sort of let that go. Now, if you have a squat cage that's sort of like the Osprey and you have a pull-up bar, then you might have to remove that. I've already done that in advance and moved that to the center of the rack just to make assembly for the side wing much easier. But we'll just take those washers and nuts and fasten them to the bottom and the top of the side wing. And it just needs to be hand tightened right now just to secure everything because we have one more bolt that we need to secure. Now we'll just slot our last bolt with a washer on the end of it. And one thing I want to point out really quickly, we have an oval cutout right here instead of a plain circle for a couple reasons. Spacing between holes might not be universal from brand to brand. So we might have a certain spacing, another brand might have a certain spacing, so you have some wiggle room to play with. But the other reason is it's going to depend on where you mount it on certain pieces of equipment. So again, we just have that oval cut out there for a little bit of wiggle room. But back to the assembly, we'll put the washer on and we will put the nut on. And once all 3 of these are hand tightened before using this, I recommend going with a wrench and a drill or an impact driver and just fully tightening all of these, all the hardware down. And it's pretty much good to go. We just need to put the weight pin on the end of it, but we still have that bottom pulley that we need to put on the rack. We might as well just get this out of the way right now. Grab your weight peg, put that on the top carabiner, and we're just gonna let that slowly come down until it touches the floor. Now we'll grab our bottom pulley, and if you want to make things even easier for this step, what I'd recommend doing is just grabbing either a 10 or 20 pound plate. I've got a 25 Savage plate on there right now, and put it on that pin. That way, when we put this on the top carabiner, then the weight of the bottom pulley won't drag this down, and it'll be easier to see where it needs to go on your particular rack. So we're just going to fasten that, leave that hanging, and we'll come down here to see where it's going to go on the rack. So on this bottom bracket, you're going to remove the knob and the UHMW ring that comes with it. One thing to keep in mind, if you are fighting, and you really have to tug just to slot this into a hole, you're probably trying to go a little too deep with the bottom bracket. So you want there to be a little bit of slack in the cable. And yes, it's a 5/8 inch bolt that we're slotting through, but with the UHMW ring and the knob, that's what's used to adapt this to a 1-inch hole in this upright. And just like that, the side wing is good to go. Now let's just say you wanted to put that bottom pulley a little bit lower. For reference, I had it about right here before, and now I've got it mounted all the way down here. All you would need to do is use the chain that's included with the side wing in order to connect the top cable to the bottom cable, and then you could mount that a little bit lower. One additional thing you can do with this, and unfortunately I don't have an example to show you, but if you wanted to put this on something like a 108-inch squat rack, you could just use the chain to, again, connect the top and the bottom cables, and then you'd be able to use that perfectly fine. Now, if you mount the side wing on the other side of your rack to where this is coming out to the right, then you're going to notice a couple things. First is going to be the nameplate right there. We're going to have to flip that the opposite direction. So you're just going to take a number 4 Allen wrench and undo these bolts. That's not good. Just like that. The other thing to adjust is the pulley position, and this design choice was intentional. If you notice, we have 2 separate slots where the pulley can go depending on where you fasten the side wing to your rack. So all we'll have to do is undo this portion right here for the plastic stopper, and we'll just let that cable hang, and then we'll do the same thing for the pulley. Now here's the order you should do it in. You're going to take the cable, put that on top of the pulley, and we're going to fasten the pulley first, and finally the plastic roller. Now let's say you don't have a squat rack like the Osprey, which is now behind me, and you have something more like a Garage SPB, which is a 2x3 rack with 5/8 inch holes. Now, despite it being only about 5 inches shorter than the Osprey, the mounting point on this rack is significantly lower than on the Osprey, so we're going to have to make some cable modifications, which I'll show a little bit later in this video, but right now, let's attach this to 2x3 tubing. First thing I like to do is take that back plate that has 1-inch and 5/8 inch slots and take 2 of my bolts and just slot those through. And then on the back of the SPB, we're also going to slot these bolts through. That way, we know exactly where the side wing is going to go. And much like on the Osprey, we're just going to slot these through, except on the 5/8 inch slots this time, and we can just let that rest for a little bit. Now, one thing to note right here, on the Garage SPB in particular, because it only has 5/8 inch holes going in one direction where we're mounting the side wing, we're not going to be able to slot anything through the side, but as long as you have the top and the bottom on the back and the front fastened, then you'll be fine. So now we just need to get the washers and the nuts on. So I've got it on the SPB, but if we pay attention to the bottom, we've got all this extra cable down here. And that's where the included cable cutters are going to come into play. But one thing that I really need to emphasize before making any snips and cuts that you're going to regret in the future, always make the cuts on the top cable, never the bottom cable. That being said, let's go into how you're going to customize this cable to make it fit your rack. First thing, we're going to take this rubber stopper on the top cable and we're going to pull up on that. And you're going to see these holes right here that require an Allen wrench to undo these bolts so you can get the cable off. So let's do that really quick. After you take this metal piece off, you'll be left with a cable that sort of looks like it's been chewed up by a dog, which is normal because this further emphasizes what I'm going to share in a little bit. But you'll take your cable cutter, and I'm not going to do an exact cut of what I would need for this rack, but just as an example, you'll just cut your cable like that, and you should have a smooth portion right at the end of it to make it very easy to go back into the stopper. Now, let's reattach this. When reattaching the cable, here's the order it's going to go in. Rubber stopper, then metal end piece. So we'll put the rubber stopper on first with the thicker side up. We'll grab the end piece and feed the cable through, and we're going to go ahead and tighten up these bolts with our Allen wrench. Now, this is an issue that people run into a ton. They think that it's tight, but it's actually not tight one bit. If anything, I want you to over tighten these bolts, and that will for sure fasten this metal end piece to your cable. The best way I could put it is think of the difference between hand tightening something and then really using some tools to crank something down. So the average person is going to think, "Oh, I'm getting to the end. It's because it's giving me a little bit of resistance now. It's tight enough." No, no, no. You really want to crank this until you can't anymore. Okay, so that's the middle piece right there. And then I'll just do it for the top and the bottom on the opposite side. So that's exactly what I mean by really tightening things down. When you think you've given it enough, give it a little bit more. And that's exactly how you would adjust the cable. Now, when it comes to cutting cables for any machine, it's not even just exclusive to the side wing. Always give yourself a little bit of extra breathing room. You could have the exact measurement that you need to cut the cable, but it could end up being a little bit too short. So I would say if you needed to remove 9 inches from this cable, try only removing 7.5 or 8 inches at first, see how it feels, and then if you need to make it further adjustments from there, go right on ahead. That's it for the assembly of the side wing pulley system. It's very easy. Just take it out of the box, fasten it to the top of your squat rack, and you're pretty much good to go. And if you're mounting it to something shorter like our garage SPB, then make a couple cable modifications, and then you're also good to go. I need to emphasize this is a universal pulley system that goes on 2x3 and 3x3 racks with either 5/8 inch or 1 inch holes. Hopefully I was able to answer any potential questions you might have had in this video, and if you have any additional ones, please be sure to leave them down below in the comments or send an email to team@fringesport.com. If you enjoyed this video or think it deserves one, please be sure to drop it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out a lot more than you think, and it lets us know that you're actually enjoying our content. Subscribe if you want to see more assembly videos, product unveiling, or just general fitness content, and hopefully we'll see you in that next video.